right. Hello, everyone, hello, and welcome. We are going to jump right into our operational director's content today. I have two guests with me that are hopefully going to be frequent flyers with us, and I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves real quick and the church that they're coming from.
I'll start. My name is Simone Felton. I'm coming from Bethel Murfreesboro, and I've been an executive administrator for a year now.
Hi, my name is Charles Haith, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer from Orlando World Outreach Center in Orlando, Florida. And I've been in this role now for almost 6 years now.
And my name is Dobbins. I am the Director of Operations at Every Nation Cincinnati Church and have been in the role now for about 6 years. So what you hear, if nothing else, you just heard a wide range of titles. But funny enough, we all do very similar jobs. So as we think about the conversation and we go through, kind of the overall title I've come up with for us to unify under, so we don't have to list like 8 different titles every time we do this, is operational directors. That's essentially what we do. We manage the operations of the church. We keep things fluid and moving forward. Oftentimes it's coined as we do everything but the preaching and the teaching. And sometimes we get thrown in there as well. So as you hear me kind of continue to go through, if you go, well, I don't hold that title, this is really for anyone who has to work gets to work in the operational components of the church, the inner workings that allow ministry to flourish. So today, our topic is really looking at how we do what we do well and looking at the key strengths and dangers of what it looks like as an operational director. And we're going to run through a couple of questions, kind of flush these out and kind of hear some of the stories. And I hope that as you're listening, you'll hear some similarities and hopefully take away some tricks, some tips, some things that you can use to better your knowledge and your abilities as operational directors wherever you are, or simply someone who is helping to manage operational components for a church plant. As I've said before, our goal or our focus group really is those churches that are under 500, but I believe that someone in any situation can take away great information from their time listening. So I encourage you to sit in and take notes and enjoy the content. So first question up, anyone who would like to answer can go first. How did you come to be in the role that you are? Kind of explaining your pathway to becoming an operational director.
I will start. My pathway to becoming what I am now at the church. It's a long story, but I'll make it a short one. I started working at a food truck in Atlanta, very random, but it was a new business. And I got to be able to see the inner workings of just a business and organization. And I loved it. I loved being able to help them figure out how to train people, see what was going wrong, fixing it, and improving it in the future. And so I went to school for industrial organizational psychology, which is essentially focuses on the workplace of psychology. So training and development, compensation, employee attitudes and motivations, all of that. And as I was in school, I felt called into ministry. And I was wrestling with how do I apply my major to the church. And I was fortunate enough to get an internship in the HR department of an organization called Every Nation. And from there, I learned exactly the inner workings of a ministry, at least, not specifically a church. And then my pastor called me and offered me a job. So here I am 1 year later.
Come on. I love it. I love it. Man, you said, of course, I think what we'll hear is we hear these stories that they're all very unique and take some very interesting paths. But I can even stop now and pause and go, man, if you are a church, especially a church under 500, and you do not have an internship program, you are missing out on some amazing people who just are looking for that little nudge to go, this is what I'm meant to do. And truthfully, it doesn't take a whole lot to get an internship program going. It can seem like a big mountain to climb, but if you're willing to tread into those waters, you will find some quality people that are training for the commercial workforce that I believe God fully intended and intends for them to be a part of working in the nonprofit and church world. So great. Thank you for letting us hear your story, Simone. Pastor Charles, let's hear it, man.
Yeah, my story is a little different. I'm glad you said everybody's pathway is different, because I started off in the Marines, and I served 8 years. Then I transitioned to a large corporate Fortune 500 company, worked for them several years. And then I worked for a large multi-office international law firm. So I was working with them, and our church was growing, and I got a call from our pastor, and he started asking different questions. And the next thing I know, I was working at the church. So from an operations standpoint, I served in different capacities, different environments, administrative, just touched a little bit of everything. So it seems like it was a job that was just tailor-made for my life experiences. So that's
yeah.
wound up where I'm at.
Come on. So for both of you, this was not in the cards. This wasn't, I'm going to go to school to become an operational director for a church.
Wasn't planned at all.
Yeah. And I can echo that a little of my story. Man, I think mine might be the farthest reaching from any shape or fashion of this world. Went to school for musical theater. Actually went to a couple of different schools for musical theater, working in Orlando, actually where I met Pastor Charles and his family, working for Disney World down there in their entertainment department, singer, dancer, living fully in front on the stage. Came up this way to Cincinnati, where we are now, with the purpose of being the worship leader, and quickly realized that a lot of the things that I'd learned along the way, a lot of the experiences that I had, gave me additional knowledge, and then just a unique, canny ability to go, hey, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Slowly got me into a role where, same thing, pastor sat down and went, you know what, out of all the skills and talents that you brought to the table, I feel like your worship leading is probably the slowest on the chart. And it's great, it's excellent, but I think you'd be a lot more suited to be our director of operations. And lo and behold, in the same fashion, I found myself in a role and a job that I never thought or even considered as a possibility, which again, why I think internships within the church are so important, because many people live in a space where they believe, if I don't want to be a pastor who preaches every Sunday or a worship leader who is singing every Sunday, then there's no place for me in the organizational function of the church. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
So next question for everybody. What types of people tend to make good operational directors? In your opinion, what types of people tend to make good operational directors?
Simone, I'll defer to you.
Well, I have a list, but I won't say them all just in case I take everyone's answers. But my top two are adaptable and not afraid of challenges. Because oftentimes in this role, you are getting stretched and pulled in a lot of different directions, and you're responsible for a lot of things in different facets of the church. And so being able to, I don't know, like my day to day, writing contracts and sending them out, and ordering a basketball hoop for the church, like they're two completely different things, but it's things that I'm responsible for. And so that, and then definitely not afraid of challenges, because no matter where you are, no matter what church you're in, you are going to be presented with something that you do not know how to do. And not being afraid of that is going to be something that's really helpful, because when you have the attitude of, like what Van said, I don't know, but I can figure it out, instead of spending time worrying, that helps so much.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Love it.
That's so good, Simone. Mine was similar. You have to enjoy challenges, but you have to be a diplomat. The reason being is because you have ministry, which is the vision, but you also have practicality, which is business. And you have to be able to manage both. There's always going to be a gentle tension between the two, because visionaries, don't always look at the bottom line. They see this vision and they're like, let's go. And you also have to understand the Bible says, count the cost before you build. So sometimes you have to be able to talk about the vision, but also come up with plans or help facilitate plans to achieve the vision. So that's real important. A lot of times you have to be the mediator with what's going on with the church, you know? So just problem solving skills, being able to shift gears at a moment's notice. I think that's a person that makes a good ops director. Also, I would say a person that has attention to detail. And there are a lot of details that go on behind the scene, that details that are taken care of before you have your Sunday service, before you have your youth meeting, things that transpire before people even show up on property. So you've got to pay attention to details. So that's a couple of the things that I would like to mention.
Yes, and 100% agreement with both of you. And I would add to that list, man, you have to be someone who doesn't have their feelings hurt easily.
Yes.
You have to have thick skin for this role. Yes. And in that kind of the additional one that I would add is, man, the ability to walk through a challenging conversation without allowing your emotions to take center stage. You will be routinely dealing with emotional people. And to Pastor Charles's point, your ability to mediate a situation will be the make or break for you as someone who's an operational director. Your ability to deal intrinsically with people. If you do not like people, being an operational director is probably not a good position for you, because as much as dealing with systems are great. I joke about this all the time. Systems are great until you add people to them.
Yes.
You got to recognize that no matter how great the system is, if it's not easy, if it's not something that you can motivate people to do, it will lay on the table and you will become incredibly frustrated with the people around you. So you really do have to be able to adapt and to recognize the landscape and be someone who often says, you know what, I'll do whatever it takes. If I don't know how, I'll figure it out. Right.
Yes.
So in light of that, next question for everybody. What are some of the main experiences you feel prepared you for the role that you're in today? What are some of the main experiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the 3 areas that I worked in really prepared me. The military, the organization, people always have to know who's in charge. But at the same time, you want to build a team so strong that if anybody looks at your team, they don't know who's in charge. That's the goal, to build your team that strong. The other aspect that prepared me, I believe, was working in the business realm, getting to understand numbers, understand business, how everything works. And then working in the law firm, I got to understand and learn how to navigate the pitfalls of legal issues. As a church, you have to be aware of legal issues or potential legal issues to protect the church, because people sometimes have a tendency to prey on the church because they look at it as a weak target. So we want to make sure that we're covering the church as operation directors. We're not exposing the church to any liability. We want to make sure that operationally, we're running well, as far as business, and also at the same time being able to have leadership structures in place so your team and your church can function when you're not there. I often say the true measure of leadership is, what does your church look like when you're absent? Can they function, or is it chaos? And I often tell our staff that a lot of your evaluation is based upon what does your department look like when you're not here. So those things I think have really helped me.
Definitely. And Pastor Charles, you saw Simone and I immediately start smiling on that last comment because we were just talking about that. I'm actually in the middle of a staycation, and Simone asked how it was going. And I said, you know what? The way that I benchmark how well that's going is how often someone on my team has to call me because they don't know how to do something or they don't know where to find it. That is a true benchmark of how well you've prepared your team. The more they have to call you, that indicates how dependent they are on you, and how at the end of the day, you now become the choke point for the growth of your ministry. So every time I'm out, that's what I'm perceiving and thinking through, is going, man, how often am I getting called? Here and wherever I get called, I make a mental note and go, I've got to train someone. I've got to make sure someone has this information before I leave the next time.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So, exactly. Yeah. All the way, Pastor Charles. Simone, how about you?
for sure. Two main experiences that have helped me in my role right now. One, I mentioned it earlier, working on the food truck as a brand new business and experiencing things coming from the left field. You guys, it's not story time, but one day we were on the food truck. I was giving orders. We were cooking food in the back, and the truck started rolling down the hill while we were on it. and in that moment, I had to be the one who held it together and figured out how to stop this truck. And so just experiencing things like that and learning how to keep my composure in a time of chaos, and instead of worrying about the environment and situation around me, focusing on how to solve the problem, has helped me immensely in this role. And also another experience that has helped me is I recently graduated college, but while I was at NTSU before COVID, I tried to start a club. And I don't know anything about starting a club, but it was for public speaking, and I thought it was really important. And so through that, I had to do a lot of research on what do I need, who do I need to talk to, where do I go to get what? And having to do that alone by myself and getting over that fear barrier of I don't know how to do this, but like you said, Van, I'm going to figure it out. That really helped me see that research can get the job done. Knowing who to go to is very valuable. And so those two experiences has helped me immensely right now.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Research is such an important piece when you're living in a space where you're often put in situations where you don't know the answer or you've never experienced it before. Our ability to research and find things, I think, is definitely one of those vital things. And as we cultivate that, it becomes one of our most powerful tools, I believe. And I would say for me, entertainment, working in the entertainment world was a great way to prepare for this role. And intrinsically, you wouldn't necessarily think so. But when you're on stage and things are going wrong, you're not allowed to show it on your face. You can't succumb to the moment. You got to keep a smile on your face. You got to keep moving forward. And I think in our world, in any business world, the ability for the person in charge to maintain their composure, to not allow moments to visibly, they may be that duck where the feet are going crazy underneath the water, but on the surface, it's nice and clean and cool. That is one of the most important experiential things that I've gained from the entertainment world, is no matter what's going on, you can still put a smile on your face, and you can still deal with people calmly, because however you function as a leader, your team will take note. They will mirror that. So if you are not calm, your team will not be calm. If you are not, man, to the point, let's move forward, let's get together, your team will be running all over the place. So entertainment world was a very big piece of that for me. And I think the other experience was actually working in the construction world, because you often find that if I went through the list of jobs that I had between the time that I graduated till now, man, it's almost a novel's worth of work. But in the construction world, you often run into problems, especially the renovation world, which is where I was working. You open a wall up and you go, oh my goodness, what did this person do before me? And in that moment, you have to be able to start thinking through possible scenarios and ways to adapt the plan that you started with, and be willing to come up with multiple versions and then discuss them and make a choice in a matter of moments. You don't have all day to sit and contemplate what the step will be. So learning how to make those decisions on the fly, learning how to adapt with what's in front of me, became crucial to the position. So we're heading into the home stretch. Last question, second to last question. What are some good habits that help you to continue to improve in your role as an operational director? What are some good habits that help you to improve?
Simone, you want to take it or I can go?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I have two habits. The first one is definitely the most important for me, taking notes.
Come on.
I need notes. Everyone needs notes. And that's what I've learned, because we talk about so many things during meetings, during phone calls, during emails, and it can get lost very easily. So just taking notes and being able to see in an organized fashion, okay, this is what needs to be done and this is who needs to do it, has been so helpful for me. And second is kind of along those lines, but it's being organized, because we do have our hands in so many different things. If our space is cluttered and we have contracts and annual reviews and finances on the same desk, it's going to be a hot mess. So
You see my desk?
I just cleaned mine up today. But being able to organize that, organize your email, organize your time has been very important in helping me improve in my role.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's
Agreed.
good. I think there's for me there's two habits. Is one, getting in the office early, because as an operations director, people are constantly coming to you, calling you, emailing you, and you need that brief moment of time to really focus and knock out that most important thing of the day that you have to get done. That's just absolutely necessary. Or it provides you free time to get your thoughts together. That's one. But I think another good habit is you have to be a great planner, but you also have to learn how to deconstruct your plan. And what I mean by that is the plan looks great until you start to implement it. And then you get all these unknown contingencies. So what I've taught our staff to do, we come up with a plan, we turn that plan around, and we do our best to poke holes in it. We call it poking holes. And you try to poke every single hole you can into that plan until you come up with a plan to patch the holes. So when you run your plan and things happen, you've already prepared for contingencies. So you're not standing there trying to figure out how to do it. You've already discussed it. So it makes life a lot easier. It's almost like you're over prepared. But if something goes sideways on you in the middle of a service, you're not panicking because you and your staff have already discussed what the next steps are. And so the ability to plan and attempt to poke holes in that plan is, I think, it's a great habit to have. Planning is critical, so critical. Building multiple systems is my last one. Something that I learned in the military and I've transferred to our staff: 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And so you have to have systems that where if a system goes down, you've got another one in place immediately. Just for example, real quick, your pastor's mic. If he has a wireless mic and you only own one, if it goes down, you just impacted your service. But if I've got a second one on standby, then I'm good to go. So that would be my little maximum. 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Come on. I love it. I love it. Yes, and agreed. I would definitely say for me, man, one good habit that I think is vital is being a lifelong learner. You've got to be willing to constantly learn new things, and even to the place where you begin to hunger to learn new things. It no longer becomes just a practical, man, I need to do this because it's a good thing to do. But you get to a space where mentally that you kind of feel off if you're not ingesting new material, you're not learning or shaping some new idea. The innovation of your church, of your business, whether you look at it commercially or in the nonprofit world, innovation comes on the heels of your choice to continue to learn and to absorb material. And then the other, I would say, that's vitally important, and I think we've kind of hit on this, man, on a couple of different ways from both Simone and you, Pastor Charles, is this being proactive rather than reactive. Our world, we naturally live in a state of being reactive. But I think as operational directors, we do not get the privilege of being reactive. We must be proactive. And one of the ways that I really do that is having that balcony time is what we actually call it on our end of things, where at the beginning of the week or sometime before your week really gets going, Pastor Charles, you've got that window where nobody's asking you for anything. No one is coming in and out of your office. You've got a window to say, these are the things, these are the goals, the things that are meant to be accomplished this week and next week. And here's my game plan for them. And really figuring out the resources that you'll need for the week. It's from a book actually called Sustainable Children's Ministry. So, I mean, I jump all over the place and read everything. It's a great book by Mark DeVries and Annette Safstrom. And it literally is how to build a sustainable children's ministry. But as you're reading through it, you recognize that you go, man, this is well beyond a children's ministry. When you see how they begin to shape things. And so much of it is, how do I be proactive in attaining goals and seeing problems and rectifying them before they become problems. Yeah. So last thing for you guys, we're going to hit on a kind of a fun note. You might have to share a little more than you're willing, but what is one bad habit that you have had to cut in order to keep moving forward? One bad habit that you went, man, can't continue.
You can take this one, Charles.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is a great question. One bad habit that I had to overcome, I had to overcome being very direct. I had to learn diplomatic skills, because even though you already know what needs to be done, and you already know sometimes how it needs to be done, you're dealing with a wide variety of people. You're dealing with paid employees, you're dealing with volunteers. Yeah. And I often tell people that leading volunteers is more difficult than leading employees that receive a salary. The reason being is the employees receiving a salary have a vested interest in ensuring that things go well. If not, they will get an opportunity to pursue their other life's calling. Whereas a volunteer, you've got to manage them. You've got to motivate them entirely different. Yep. So for me, coming from a military background, dealing in an environment where life or death is in how you communicate, how quickly, how clear. And then I would say the business field wasn't that bad, but when I worked in the law firm, I worked in litigation. And litigators are quick-witted, they're to the point, they don't waste words, and things have to be done timely. So for me, a bad habit was when I came into the church, being direct, being quick, not leaving a lot of room for discussion. So I had to learn how to be a diplomat. I had to learn how to get buy-in. I had to learn how to manage different styles of people, and also understand that as an operations director, that people aren't projects. While we manage projects, our projects includes people. So the people can't be treated like a project. The details can, but the people can't. So that was an area of a bad habit. My communication style that worked well in those other fields didn't translate too well to the church. But glad to say that I've come a long way. So
come on. Nice. Yes. Simone, for you.
My two, first is procrastination. When I first got here, I didn't realize how urgent and how timely everything was, because we're in a ministry, we're dealing with people's souls, essentially. You can't wait a week to respond. They need your answer now. This needs to happen now. Like with benevolence, you can't put that aside. Like these are people's lives. And so I quickly learned that I cannot procrastinate in anything. If I get an assignment, if I see something that needs to get done, I try to get it done as soon as possible so we won't have to worry about it in the future. And secondly, was assuming that people know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're in meetings and we make a game plan of what everybody needs to do, I don't leave it there anymore. Now you're going to get a message from me going over everything that we said we were going to do. And then 3 days from then, I'm going to follow up and ask if it was done. Because initially I just, we talked about it once. Everybody went their separate ways. And sometimes things did not get done. So being that person who can follow up constantly and ensure that things are completed, but at the same time, not pester people and nag them and make them feel pressure to do things, is something that I had to learn.
Yeah, so good. So good on both accounts. Agree completely. It's definitely a very interesting space to navigate when you look at yourself, when you look at, hey, I have to become much more other aware. How do others perceive me? How do others perceive my actions? And again, being able to adapt, just as we said earlier, the ability to recognize those spaces that have to shift and change in order for the church to continue to grow, in order for our teams to feel supported and feel like they got the ability to do their jobs well. And I would say for me, one of the biggest things, and I think my team would attest to this, is my willingness to be wrong and not know the answer. It's very easy to get conditioned in this role to be the person who always has to have the answer. And in truth, one of the things that I've tried to develop, another great thing, if you don't listen to podcasts, man, there are so many great ones out there. Craig Rochelle has an amazing podcast. And one of the things that he says always at the end, he says, man, people would rather follow a leader who's real than one who's always right. And our ability and willingness to go, you know what, I do not have the answer to this question, but I'm going to work on it. I'm going to figure it out. Does anybody else have any ideas on how we can do this? Being okay with not having the answer. Yes, recognizing that ultimately I will be the one who needs to fix it, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to have the best answer in the room. And my willingness to trust my team not only allows the best answer to rise to the surface, but it also empowers my team, builds their confidence. And as Pastor Charles said earlier, we get to the place where we're running in such a way that you can't tell who's in charge. Because our team has now built the confidence to trust one another. And without trust, our ability to move forward as a ministry, as a team, will be literally impossible. So thank you guys so much for your time today. Thank you guys for being willing just to be transparent and share with our audience. I hope they're going to grab notes all the way through this, Simone. They were writing, making sure they're taking stuff down. I'm excited for our next week. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.